Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All Things Amyloid podcast, where we feature patients, caregivers, and clinicians who discuss amyloidosis, a rare and incurable disease. Amyloidosis occurs when the body builds up abnormal amounts of misfolded amyloid protein, which can lead to serious and life threatening outcomes. I'm your host, Mackenzie, an amyloidosis patient and founder of Mackenzie's Mission. Our goal for this podcast is to raise awareness and share firsthand what it's like to live with this disease, to care for those affected by it, and to treat it. We hope this leads to earlier diagnosis and start of treatment, which will improve patient lives. Isabelle was diagnosed some 29 years ago, struggling with symptoms, no treatments available other than being one of the earliest to have a stem cell transplant and a new husband at the time. So she clearly had much going on. But her disease burden improved, and although she'll forever be a patient, she became an advocate. So listen as we chat about life yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And no doubt you'll be inspired. Welcome, Isabel. It's so wonderful to chat and have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's a real delight to be here.
Yeah. So, there's so much that we can talk about. And looking back 29 years, I mean, that just amazes me to say it. 29 years to when you were first diagnosed with amyloidosis, and here you are today. What thoughts come to mind?
So, good question. I think, what's interesting is how much has changed and how little has changed. And so
Hmm.
I think it is remarkable. And we look at some types of amyloidosis that have different treatment options, and that didn't exist. But we also look at the extreme challenges patients face in getting diagnosed, and that's something I experienced and we still see today. So there is real hope, but there is still a lot to be done, I think, to improve the outlook for patients.
Absolutely. And you play such a big part in that and all of the wonderful things that the progress that we're trying to make in this community. So, talk a little bit about what moved you to give back to this community and get involved in all the wonderful advocacy that you're doing.
So I'm a reluctant advocate, I would say. It's something I did not really look to do at all,
Hmm.
but I was really shaken by my experience as a patient and being diagnosed initially. It took probably close to a decade to get a diagnosis. I was
Wow.
originally told that there was no treatment available, and I was fortunate enough to have um, physicians in the family that were able to really do that advocacy for me. And I experienced, which many patients do, the frustrations of my medical records not being shared. One piece of research in amyloidosis was not happening elsewhere. And also some policy issues that really stopped patients, and this was at that point I was in the UK, being able to get access to, there was a National Amyloidosis Centre. So those were things that just seemed like, particularly that piece, well, it seems pretty straightforward, so that you could actually, if somebody explained to policymakers that this is really an issue, they would fix it. So that was where I initially got involved, and seemed like quite a simple exercise to let's write some guidelines and get that changed, and it did get changed indeed. And then over time, there have been other areas where it's been clear that we needed something done for amyloidosis, and I was hoping somebody else would do it, but in the end, I ended up standing up to do it.
Yeah, I certainly can empathize with you in that situation where you're just almost at a loss for words, and it feels like you have to do something, right? There's this, you see this huge gap and this huge need in this community, and so a reluctant advocate, I think that's a great word, and I think that's how a lot of it starts, right? That you're just trying to do your best to make a difference for people. And so let's talk about the vision for your nonprofit, Amyloidosis Research Consortium, also known as ARC.
Yes, so as part of my reluctant advocacy, I spent about well over a decade trying to get more done for amyloidosis, and thinking, I don't want to do it. I don't want to start a foundation. Let's piggyback on other foundations. And so that was
Mhm.
all great. Worked with, in the focus of AL amyloidosis, with different myeloma foundations. because that's where all the amyloid doctors were. They also treat myeloma patients. So it just made sense to like piggyback on that and build an amyloid program. What changed for me was that in 2012, the first drug being developed for amyloidosis, for ATTR amyloidosis with polyneuropathy, failed to get approval. And it was a safe and effective drug. It was developed by an American scientist, went through clinical trials with an American company, and failed to get approval in the States. It was approved ultimately in 40 other countries, and still for this indication is not approved in the States. But it really shone a light on the fact that for a complex rare disease like amyloidosis, we have to come together as a community to design clinical trials to really move research forwards, because just to rely on a traditional framework for more common diseases that are well understood is not going to help, and we will not be able to change the paradigm of no treatments for patients that so desperately need it with these diseases. So that was really what led to me thinking there must be a different model. And I went around and met with, thought I'll just kind of try and evaluate what could that model look like. So I went and sat down with the different, leadership of FDA. I went and met with the CEOs of the drug companies that were interested in amyloidosis, the leading scientists, policymakers. And that was really what led to mapping out, and also met with other foundations that were doing amazing things. And that's the amazing thing, as we know, collaborating with others in rare disease space and other nonprofits just can move us forwards in leaps and bounds, and it's critical we do. So that was kind of the genesis of how I sat down and created the framework and strategic plan for ARC.
Yeah, I love to hear the backstory of that. I commend you. I can only imagine the tremendous amount of work that went into kind of getting those people together and learning more about the process, and then you figuring out how are you going to make this work to benefit the amyloidosis community. So maybe thinking ahead, kind of a fun question, but where do you think or even hope that the amyloidosis community will be 10 years from now?
10 years from now. I would like to say every problem will be nicely buttoned up and done, and we'll
Yeah,
have no job to do. Tend my lovely garden.
I'd love to
But,
be on work.
right. But research is slow. So I
Mhm.
think advances are incremental. But what I think we really are moving towards is um, speedier diagnosis. Patients will be diagnosed before they are really impacted by the disease. I think they're getting towards that, and certainly the majority of patients will experience that. And I also think what's critical for us as patients is to not only have the treatments that will work, but also understand what is the right treatment at the right time. And
Mm,
I think we are going to get towards that, but there is a lot we need to do as a community and with the researchers to get to that point.
yeah. I certainly hope and look forward to those days. But
With side effects, yes.
yeah, but in closing, just want to offer you the opportunity if there's anything you'd like to offer to kind of all the amyloidosis patients out there, whether they're newly diagnosed or they've been dealing with this disease for years or hopefully even decades, if there's kind of any nuggets of wisdom you have for them.
Although I was diagnosed nearly 30 years ago, I would say that experience, those weeks around that time, are so fresh in my mind. It could have been last week. And I
Wow.
think that's the same for every patient, that the trauma of hearing that you have a disease, a potentially fatal disease, and so little is known about it. It's a disease you've never heard about, that your family have never heard about. You have to explain how to say it, and often people can't say it. And there's all of this. And then, with AL, is it a cancer? No, it's not. Well, are you sure? And why am I being treated by oncologists or hematologists, and with ATTR, like what's causing it, and the complexities of that are so challenging. And then understanding how important it is with this disease that affects different organs, and how you get treated in a system that tends to like divide down to one specialist or another. And my advice for patients is lean into the amyloidosis community. We have an amazing community of physicians, patient advocacy organizations. At ARC, we have specialists who can help you navigate to get the care that you need. And likewise, the other organizations that are working in amyloidosis. So while it is never a good time to be diagnosed, it is not as isolating as it was. And I think that's something, lean on others to get the help that you need.
I think those are wonderful words, and I just want to thank you so much for being here today and joining the podcast. It was so wonderful to have you.
A pleasure, and always lovely to see you, Mackenzie.
You too. And as a fellow patient, I just want you to know how grateful I am for you, Isabel, and all the tireless work you've done, and you've been instrumental in really laying the groundwork for advocating for this community and making progress with clinical trials and all the work with the FDA. I mean, I can't imagine what it would look like without you and the work you've done. So you really are truly an inspiration, and I want to wish you all the best in life and in health and all the work you're doing to change the world. Thank you so much.
Well, right back at you.
Well, thank you. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us today for another episode. Thank you for listening to the All Things Amyloid podcast. If you find our podcast informative, please follow and share it with others. If you want to learn more about the work we're doing at Mackenzie's Mission, please visit mm713.org. We'd also like to thank AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, Alexion Pharmaceuticals, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, and Bridge Biopharma for their sponsorship to help raise awareness about amyloidosis. We hope you stay tuned for future episode drops. Thanks for listening.